Yeah, so you've got estimated cost to the Australian young of the 2020-21 COVID lockdowns, and you end up with an estimate in Wellbees of it looks like it's over 7 million Wellbees. So that's saying that the costs imposed on the young, so there are 7 million years of poor well-being for young people. Is that one way?
Not exactly. So a well-be is one increment on that satisfaction scale, right? So you're
Okay.
probably thinking of QALYs. So if you divide that number of well-be's by 6, then you get to the QALYs. And that's the currency you're thinking of, which is the number of healthy years.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. But you're right in terms of that's roughly the way to think about it, is that this is the amount that was deducted from the well-being of the young. Okay. And that's in terms of number of years, but also the health of those years. And again, as I mentioned at the start, the two main components of that are, one, the direct life satisfaction damage done during lockdowns, because people reported less satisfaction. And by the way, we see that in the data for Australia. So this question about life satisfaction was asked during lockdowns by the ANU poll survey people. So we literally used their findings to calibrate how much we think there was as a decrement to life satisfaction during the COVID period. And then the second big element of that cost is the debt, which will crowd out future expenditure, which would have otherwise made the lives of our young people much better in the future. Now, you may ask, what about the school closures? Wouldn't you think that would be a big thing?
Yeah.
And it is a thing, but it's interesting, a bit of a complication here. So I was seriously disturbed at the degree to which school closures were just immediately adopted, and everybody thought, oh yeah, this will be fine. We'll just have everybody working from home, doing their, classes from home and all this. I mean, it obviously was not the same. And it put our teachers under an enormous amount of pressure, by the way, as well. And of course, I mean, I would have naturally expected that in that situation, those kids who are already initially, before COVID, in a disadvantaged or stressed situation are going to be seriously left behind, right? Now, the more advantaged kids, kids of mine, for example, if I'd had small kids at the time, they would have been fine. And I had young adult kids at the time, and they were fine because, we have the resources to be able to support them and help to mitigate the damage that otherwise would have happened. But it's the people already at the bottom of the food chain who suffer the most, right? Which really makes me angry, because that's the last thing we need, right? Inequality is so unhelpful, and it's just a horrible thing when these people in cushy government jobs and bureaucracies who don't have any problem with job security are pushing this on people who then suffer, and they're already suffering. So it's just really heartless. Anyway, so you might think, well, that's going to, of course, limit the degree to which these kids are going to be able to learn whatever it is that they're learning, right? They're what we call in economics, their human capital, what's in their brains from their years and years of schooling and experience will be necessarily less. And that is true. But what we have to do then to figure out the sort of cost that has been eventually imposed upon them in terms of their well-be's or their QALYs is work out, well, how much is that productivity loss going to be reflected in lower wages when they get to be adults? And of those wages, how much is actually likely to then be spent on things that would have otherwise made them healthier, better off, more satisfied, etc., but that we, are not going to be able to spend now because of, the fact that they don't have as high wages. Well, it's not just the full wage of those kids that you want to count, because as it happens, when we spend privately, we're often spending on things like status goods. We're not always, but particularly in a country like Australia, we're spending to keep up with other people. So it's not that every extra dollar that these kids would have earned would have actually led to increases in life satisfaction. You spend in order to keep up with the Joneses. That doesn't make you more satisfied. It just keeps you at the same level, sort of thing. So what really you want to count is the fraction of those extra wages, counterfactual wages, that would have been accumulated by the society as a whole and spent on public goods, like more health, better education, better infrastructure, that sort of thing. So that's basically the tax take. So that's what we do to estimate the damage. from the loss of schooling, the disruption to schooling, in terms of well-being in the future for these kids. And as it turns out, that amount tends to be, it turns out to be much less than it would be if we counted that whole foregone wage. And so, that's a bit of a surprise perhaps to some people, but it's just because of this interesting feature of the way in which our private spending is or isn't related to creating more life satisfaction for us.